Hello and welcome to Life is Feudal, Forest Village. As you can see, we've actually managed to get our terraforming done. It's actually taken me a lot of time, a heck of a lot of game years to get this done. Doesn't seem a particularly large sort of like area. I mean, I've ended up expanding out down this side, down there as well. But it's just taken so long because the population's going up and down, up and down. It's like a roller coaster ride. I mean, I think there was at one point I had 50 labourers, so I was putting those people back into jobs. Then people were starving to death, so I then had to start pulling people out of jobs just to make sure there was enough people in the food business. I mean, at the moment we're in a pretty bad shape when it comes to meat. I don't really know why. Because if I go to these this pasture like this one here, for instance, look at the like 10 years, it's kind of like in free fall. It's as if there's literally not enough meat being produced. It's just going down and down and down. Now, I was thinking, well, maybe it's like I've reached some sort of like tipping point in terms of there's just too many people in the population and not enough food, but that wouldn't explain, you know, the actual food shortage where food's literally not getting produced as much. I think what it is, it's just due to like instability in the population where the actual people that are working these fields aren't lasting, so that the work's not getting done as well, and it means that we're just not producing as much food as we were before. But the plan was really, I mean, I've actually got 4 pastures over here to be honest, to try and actually see if I could save that, but it's still not making that much of a difference. I even added in an extra orchard over here to try and help, you know, to try and push the fruit up as well. Because as soon as you get like a shortage in one item, you get then everybody starts eating everything else. So it's yeah, it's a bit of a nasty vicious circle, really. But I've had to introduce quite a lot more like farms into the game, because this particular grass field here, for instance, it's not producing enough hay. So I built this one, which is 2 farmers, and that didn't solve it. I got to about 2,500, but it didn't last throughout the year. Then I built this one, which is 3. That one, it's managed to push us up to about 3,200. We're into the second you know, crop. We're into the fall, we're into the second crop, so I think that works. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to see one more time just to see how much, if we've got any spare at the end of the next year. If so, I think what I might do is keep these 2, pause that one off, and then see how it does with one this size and that size. But yeah, it still doesn't really fully explain to me why we're losing the meat, but I do know we've got this really big instability in terms of like the population. It just goes up and down. It's just going up and down, up and down. It means that, you know, doing things like terraforming takes a long time. I mean, part of the problem is if I say like want people to do some work over here and chop these trees down, the risk is I could get people coming over from village 1, vice versa. You know, people from village 2 might go over there. They might actually go over there to pick up meat. You know, a Tau might have shot an actual animal over there. They go over there, pick the meat up, and by the time they get back, they starve to death. I mean, I can cap, up to now, I've been able to cap the number of people doing the actual terraforming, or at least that phase 2 part, where it's just nothing but terraforming. And I've been able to cap that to about like 15 people, but it's meant it's just taking a long time. So I really need to find a solution to this population problem. But it's one of those things where I'm trying to find like strategies to keep the food going. And what I've been doing, for instance, is I've been pulling people out of the orchards. You know, we're getting into the winter. I've been pulling people out of the orchards on the grounds that they're just going to stand around and do nothing. Put them into the fish farms, and yet for some strange reason I'll end up with like people who are fish farmers dying in village 1. I've been pulling people out of the farms as well during the winter, putting them into the mills, putting them into the bakeries, and I'm getting those people dying. The only thing I can think of is that, I mean, I'm taking these people out of the jobs, so that makes them labourers. Now, even though those people are actually now still living over here, in theory, I don't know where the game sends them to, but I suspect the game's then picking them, you know, from village 2. So you're getting somebody coming from all the way from village 2 all the way over here. They've suddenly become a fish farmer. And, you know, they die of starvation. They just don't get far enough over here to actually to be able to survive. And I think that's the only thing I can explain, because the actual, I mean, I've had this problem when I had like 35,000 meat. So there was plenty of meat in the actual area. There wasn't any houses shortage of, you know, short of food. So that's the only explanation I could come up with, was that people were literally moving from one village to another to take on that job, and they just couldn't survive the distance. So I end up stopping that. It just doesn't happen anymore. So obviously we're not getting enough food now as we used to. So yeah, it's a bit of a vicious circle. But the plan was, I was going to start this episode in the spring of next year, because if I actually start building the roads, for instance, now, and I need those as my marker points, what will happen is I'll get a load of people who will come running over from village number 1, and they'll end up starving to death. So it's not practical. I really need to wait till the spring. But I've actually found some interesting things just to show you what I'm up against. You know, when it comes to starvation, the problem I'm in by having these 2 villages and having them so far apart. I've played it over. I've literally loaded the game up a few times, played it through. The result is slightly different. It's different people that get affected, but it always results in quite a lot of people starving to death. So, out of curiosity, I thought I'd actually show you what we actually run into. So, I'm just playing the game out. I'm keeping an eye out on here, because I know usually during the winter time I end up with quite a few wolves coming over here and start attacking the actual. Oh, there's one already. They already got straight into the field. I always like that. It says, you know, the actual the herdsman's actually looking after the cattle, but they don't seem to care about the fact that there's wolves wandering around and killing them. There's a wolf over there that I saw as well, so I'll send you back. I'll put that speed back up again. But we'll just play this through, because, I mean, as I say, the results are slightly different, as in different people get affected by it. But the outcome is pretty much the same, where we'll get quite a lot of people. We'll get into the winter time and quite a lot of people will suddenly starve to death. It'll be interesting to see... Oh, was that a wolf down there? Yeah, there's one down there. It'll be interesting to see if I get this really weird problem with one of the caravanners who starves to death. It'll be interesting to see if that reproduces. It's like Groundhog Day in some respects. But just give it a bit of a while, because I think it was around about early winter, and then there's just like quite a lot of people suddenly starve to death. There was actually one person last time suddenly started to starve, and I think, as far as I could tell, they were actually somebody who had gone from being a teenager to an actual labourer. So I'm just playing this out. I'll just play it out a bit faster. We'll just keep an eye on the number of people who are Oh, there you go. Right, we've got 2 people are starving already. So let's see if we can find them. I think in some of it's because what happens is there are teenagers over here who grow up, become adults, so they become labourers, and then they start to head over to village 1, and they'll get so far then they'll just starve to death. So there's Mara. Now Mara's 6. So I suspect she's just suddenly grown up. I'm not seeing them, but that's usually been what it is. Ah, there you go. Teenager Mara has grown up and is ready to work. So they're grown up. So they must. You look where they are, and you've got to think they must have been here. They must have been born here and been a teenager here. But if I click on that house, they're over in village number 1. Their house is in village number 1. For whatever reason, the game has sent them over to village number 1. So you can be pretty certain she's going to now starve to death. She's not going to get over. I mean, to be honest, it's quite possible she might actually die of hypothermia. I don't know why, but I've had like a teenager die of hypothermia. Even they actually walked right the way past the barn where we've got 25 warm clothing there in that barn, and they just walked by, suddenly got hypothermia, and instead of turning back, they just died. Let's see if there's anybody else running along in this direction somewhere, because that's usually the common thread, is they tend to be heading through the actual centre. So let's just keep that running. So far we've got 2 people. We know one was a teenager. Oh, there you go. 7 people starving to death. So there's another person there. So they are, oh, that's Mara anyway. Landon. Now Landon's 32. Landon's a farmer. I haven't got a farmer who's recently died. Now if I click on their house, they live in village 1, and yet they're over in village 2. Where's Landon again? And they work on a field in village 1. Now the $64 million question for me is, what on earth is Landon doing all the way out here if they were originally working over there? The game, to me, the game must have done something to swap things over, because there's a forester's died. Hang on, there's a pack mule died as well. I better fix that as well. Let's see. So I'm not seeing any shortages. Yeah, so I think we're okay with that. But the game must have done something to turn Landon into a farmer, even though I'm not seeing a farmer having died recently. I mean, well, it could be. It could be because of Sama who died. Sama was a farmer who died there, so it's possible they're replacing them. That is one. That's one feasible option, I suppose. But again, they're starving, and I very much doubt they're going to make it all the way over to village 2. Prison, another teenager, I'd imagine. She'll be in that list somewhere because she's only 6. So I'm pretty sure we're dealing with another teenager who's now become a labourer. And she also lives over in village number 1 for some reason. I mean, there's not... Let's just have a check of the school. There's plenty of places in the school to have kept her over here, but for some reason she's being forced over to village number 1. I'm just looking over here because usually that's what happens. They all start heading over to village number 1, and that was what I noticed. So who's that one? Alicia. So Alicia must have, presumably a carpenter must have died, I think. Has a carpenter died recently? Doesn't look like it. So where do you live? Okay, so Alicia works over here, or lives over here, I should say. That's Kenley. Where on earth did I find Alicia? So she lives over here and she works over here, yet she's over in village 2, right while we're in late fall. Very low temperatures. So it's possible, I suppose, she came over here to pick something up. I don't know. It's just very, very strange. So right up to like 9 people so far who are starving to death. So all of a sudden you're going to start to see quite a lot of them suddenly literally starve to death. There'll be a big list, and it'll repeat, because then those people will have to get replaced, or at least the ones who've got a job will. The labourers, it probably doesn't matter, but it's the ones who've actually got a job. So there you go. So there's a couple of people we definitely saw early on, and there you go. You see, and so the trouble now is that the number of free labourers I've got is dropping, and it's going to keep dropping for a while. It'll stop in a minute, but sometimes it's a really big fall. Now I want to try and have a look. So there's Aiden, for instance. He's a teenager. Yeah, teenager Aiden. So he's actually he's got hypothermia. He's freezing to death, and he hasn't had the common sense to go to the barn to get some new clothes. It's possible that his clothes haven't quite worn out, but those warm clothes I would have thought would have kept him going. Tell you what, let me get rid of that wolf while I'm here. There you go. Your hide will come in useful to somebody. So let's have a look. So we already know he's not gonna make it. I'm just having a look out for this this caravan to see if the caravan turns up, because that one's a real doozy if that one happens again. No, it's not you. Well, possibly, but as I said, sometimes the names change. That's what I found. I'll just keep my eye out for them. Oh, there you go. Right, this one's a real humdinger. I have no idea. So you've got Abdullah here. Now, if I ask where he lives, it's here. So he lives in village 2. Where have we gone? I've lost the plot. He's somewhere out here. Oh, that's Aiden. So he lives in village 2 and he works in village 2. So he's working in this caravan stable. Now I've double checked this. I've checked it. I've double checked it. Basically, what this stable does, the routes that it's got, is to take meat and milk from here and put them into these 2 barns. It then gets some eggs from there if there is any and puts them into that barn. Vegetables and fruit from these 2 barns, puts them into that barn. The eggs, yeah, I mentioned the eggs. It gets the fruit as well. The only other thing it does is it takes milk from here and takes them down to the market. Now as I say, I've checked and double checked that the source of the trade route and the actual destination. So there's nothing outside of this village that caravan stable should be up to. And yet for some reason Abdullah's wandering along the path here, and it gets really strange. He's not like heading up to here to go to a barn here. What's going to happen is he's going to keep going. He's going to make a turn somewhere around here and start heading up in this direction. And when he gets there, he'll get so far and then he'll suddenly change his mind. He'll abandon the actual the pack mule. I mean, I'm not sure why, because I was always under the impression that these, you know, he's starving to death and yet he's not going home. He's obviously got some rule telling him to go somewhere, and yet he's going to abandon this mule and he's then going to walk home to try and get something to eat, but he's not going to meet it. He's not going to make it. So you can see he's abandoned the mule now. So he's wandering along there, and the poor mule's now just trailing along behind him. And he was already starving before he even left village 2, so he's going to die again. I'm not sure if the mule will make it back, but hang on a minute. Have we lost another? Have we lost another cow? Oh, there's the wolf there. Yeah, they're a bit tricky to find because they sometimes actually leave that one place and they go somewhere else. Right, let's get rid of that. So yeah, that's a real humdinger, that one, to me, because none of the caravan routes go outside the village. They're all to barns or that market, all within village 2, and yet for some reason he was heading out in what seemed to be in the direction of village number 1. I mean, I'm wondering if maybe he was a caravaner over here at some point and he's been moved back to here. I honestly, I don't know. I just can't explain why he did that. But it's meant he's like starved to death. So, I mean, we've dropped from about, so far, from 12 to 9. And it's just going to keep on going like that, I think. So I'm going to lose quite a few people. We're down to 8 now. So it's a big problem because I get a lot of people, then hardly any people. And it means the game just drags on and on while I'm trying to get things done. But anyway, now that you've seen some of the challenges that I'm up against, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pause the video there and I'll bring you back once we get into the spring and we can start actually working on the chicken coop. So, I'll see you shortly. Well, we're into the spring, but as you can see, we've lost quite a lot of people. I'm down to only 5 free labourers. If I start getting people to chop these trees down, build roads, they'll all come over from Village 1 probably, and I'll lose even more people to starvation, so I don't really want to risk that. Now what I can do is I can actually build the roads, kind of, but just not actually complete them. So tell you what, what's that there? It's about so that's about 5 up from there. So I can at least put the road down. I just don't necessarily have to get it built. So the idea is I want a chicken coop over there. So just grab that. Now that's got to line up with that road there where the barns start. So if I bring that, so it's 38 by 18. Okay, so I need to rotate it around so that that's there. So that gets the... Well, that's going to need 180 wood. So I can at least get that chicken coop built. The catch though is I'm going to need some oats. So either way I'm going to have to start building all of these roads, and I don't want to risk it while I've got so few labourers. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to play this out another year. See how we do, see if we've got a lot more labourers. Because most of the people that I've got, they're all just, you know, making food, and we're really struggling at the moment. I don't see anywhere out where I can risk pulling people out. I mean, yeah, I could pull people out of the taverns, the schools maybe, out the mines, but I could lose a lot of people, you know, because we build the roads. So I'm just going to play this out. Then we'll build that little bit of road there, I suppose. That's no biggie. So I could always just clear it out. I won't officially delete though, because that foundations are getting in the way, but it doesn't really matter because we'll build it anyway. But yeah, I think I'm just gonna wait until the next spring and see how we do population wise, because there's another 32 teenagers yet to grow up. So let's play that out and see what we get next year. Well, I've come back a bit early because, to be honest, I don't know if the game's just going to collapse. Population's been dropping quite a lot, people are starving. I've had problems of basically the food levels dropping significantly throughout this year, well, probably for quite a while really. I mean, we're down to only 40,000 in food overall, so it's getting significantly worse. So what I've been doing is I've been looking in the wiki, because I mean, I know fairly early on in the game I could tell that if you didn't provide the people with fish, you were going to have problems. Because I know we had a good supply of you know, fish, meat, fruit and vegetables. Then I was playing around getting like the fish farms and, you know, the fishing lodges all built, and when the fish started to decline, these other 3 types of food started to plummet quite a lot. And for most of the time I've ended up trying to plug the gap by buying fish over the market. Now, I wasn't quite sure what was going on, because there's a lot of people starving still, even though we've got quite a bit of food, or at least well, we have had for a while anyway. And so I've had a look on the wiki, and it turns out that there's actually 5 types of vitamins that you've got to provide these people, and they get the different ones from different food sources. Now then, in your early game, fish is the only source of vitamin E. So it's a case of, unless they're getting that fish, you're going to be in serious trouble by the looks of it. And what I've been doing during the game is I've been taking away the substitutes, because I've been really keen to get people over here into the fields, into the pastures and so on. And it's come at the expense of people living in village number 1. So for instance, when the population's been dropping, I've been pulling people out of the mills, out of the bakeries, even got to the point where I was pulling people out of the fish farms, and that was probably the worst thing I could have done, because bread, all these pies, honey, they're all sources of vitamin E. So if you're not giving them fish, you want to be giving them, something from one of these types of foods, and that's something I haven't been doing. So I've taken some pretty drastic actions to try and fix it, basically. I mean, the population's been coming back up, and it's been reasonably stable. I mean, last year I was losing quite a lot of people to old age as well as starvation. I mean, we'll see how it goes over the winter, but because I don't have that many people, what I've been doing is I've made sure that there's 2 people working the fish farm here to make sure that these people up here are going to get some fish. So they're working all year round now. Over here, on the other hand, because I just don't have the people, I've actually paused all these fish farms off, because I've never really seen that much sort of like fish coming through, to be honest. And it may just well be because people are just, we're just not providing enough. Even with all these fish farms, we're just not providing enough fish. But in any case, what I've done is I've been putting people back into the bakeries instead, because I'm pretty sure that fish production in here is pretty slow. I mean, these ones have got like 100 in, so these have just been sitting around doing nothing for quite a while, so they're full. But what I've done is I've brought the bakeries back. We've got plenty of grain, plenty of flour for now at least. So we've got 2 bakeries here that produce bread. Now all they need is the grain, so I think we're pretty much fine with that. They're a bit slower than making pies. They take 0.7 minutes versus 0.5. I've locked off the eggs again, and I've got both of our vegetable pie bakers back. I've got one of the fruit pie bakers back, and I've paused off the this fruit pie one. That one's still paused off. The 2 meat ones are still paused, and the 2 fish ones are paused as well. Now as the population starts to come back up again, which I'm hoping it does now that I've started taking action, I'll then be able to start putting more people back into the bakeries. What I've also done is I'm going to get this fishing lodge up here built, because at the moment we've only got one down here. We just don't have a real source of vitamin E in this area, because we've got we just don't have enough produce that I'm making over here to be able to then sell off in the market now. Early on we were getting a lot of meat coming in from village 1, and I was selling that off. So yeah, at the moment it's very tricky giving these people vitamin E. So hopefully that'll help out a bit. Because we don't get that much meat or vegetables here, what I've done is I've got a gatherer over here being built. Down here I've got a hunting cabin. I thought what I'd do is, because we keep getting attacks from wolves, I thought I'd try and protect that area. I think I'll drop that to just 1, to be honest, just to free some people up. What I've done is I've actually paused this one off. There was a one down here. I'm not too fussed about animals in this area. I'd rather have them focusing up here, and that way it kind of like helps me with the cows. Because as I say, it's not that long ago I was down to like just literally just a couple of labourers, really struggling with the population. So we've got that back, so hopefully we'll now start to see a lot more fruit and vegetables coming into the area once that gatherer is built, and then we'll start getting more fish produced, because that lodge over there will come on stream. Now I have managed, because we got up to about 12 population a short while ago, I've now got them being able to work on the actual road, so that's allowed me to start putting these little foundations in. So we've got one there for the caravan stable, we've got 2 for the chicken coops, 1 for the barn. So I just need to finish this bit off. We'll get a road running down here, and then what I can do is then I can put in a field to produce the oats. Then once that's been running for a year, I can then start bringing the chicken coops in, and then the eggs that they'll produce, they'll then be able to give these people here a source of vitamin E. So I'm just going to basically just carry on with the roads. I think that's probably about as far as I want to go with the roads for now, because we're into the fall. If I build any more, chances are people will be coming across during the winter time, and yeah, they'll run into serious problems. So that's about as far as I'm going to go for now, because I've made so many changes. I just want to see what the impact is. But what I am definitely going to do though is these farms, I'm going to do what I was doing before, which is the farms are going to, the farmers' fields, I'm just going to pull people out of the fields and put them into these fish farms here. Now, the risk is I'll end up with people coming from over here to here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause the actual farmers' fields first, and then I'll force, the actual farmers out. Now, again, I can't guarantee that the game is then going to pick some labourers living over in Village 2, because I suspect that has been going on. But I've really got to get more fish into this area, and that's the only way I can see of doing it. Just swapping the farmers backwards and forwards. We'll just have to see how it goes in terms of, like, starvation or people crossing backwards and forwards between the villages. So I'm just going to play this out as is, swap people around over the winter, swap them back, and then once we get into the spring, I'll bring you back. Well, we're into the spring now, and it didn't go too badly, I must admit. I mean, I did lose quite a lot of people to, like, old age. People who are dying of, like, things like hypothermia, teenagers, children, for instance. It's kind of frustrating for whatever reason. Like, some poor kid grows up over here and gets to the middle of winter when they've grown up, and the game decides, all right, you're going to go off and live in village number 1. So I've no idea what's going on over there. I mean, I've now pulled all of the people out of the mills, out of the bakeries. There's just a few bakeries left now. Everybody's out of the fish farms, and they're all back into the actual into the fields growing vegetables. I've still got one person doing the hunting cabin there, but I thought because of the meat problems, I'll put these 2 hunters back again. We've got our gatherer built over here, and I've got 2 people assigned to there, so hopefully they'll start bringing quite a bit of fruit and vegetables and dumping that into this barn over here to help the people over in this quadrant. I ended up pausing off the fishing lodge over the winter time because I didn't want people coming over and digging it up and gathering these logs, and I've just got them starting again now that it's spring. And what I've now done is I've realised these roads are a bit out of sync, so I'm having to get these roads here destroyed. Just take that. I think I might have missed a bit when I was doing it, so I'll just make sure that gets destroyed. I've managed to put an extra road down the side of here, so that needs to get built. And then I've just put in this extra field. This one will end up being one for oats, and that's got to be our priority. We've got to get that up and running. Worst case scenario, we'll be able to dump oats into one of these barns, and then once that's getting harvested at the end of this year, we'll be able to have oats to be able to start feeding the chickens in the next year. So yeah, not too bad. I don't really have that many people now, just mostly because of old age, kids dying of hypothermia and what have you. I mean, obviously it doesn't affect the labourers, I must admit, but one thing I did do though is I've ended up pausing off that field there. I mean, we were up to, I noticed when we got into the spring, there was still about 3,000 hay in this barn, in this warehouse over here. So I'm not too bothered. I think that seems a lot better, because before when I just had that one and that one, I was running out. Now it seems a bit better, so we'll just see if what happens while we're running with just these, the size 6 and the size 3 next year. See how that goes, and hopefully we'll be able to do without that farm there, because it means 2 fewer farmers needed. Now I can't really see much of what's going on over here at the minute, because I definitely need to start putting like wells in place. So I'm waiting for these people to come over here and start clearing this area out, because it's got quite a bit of wood needed, but there's 7 trees apparently to chop down. Then they'll have to take those trees away. I can see over there, so I'll get them to build a road down here, and then we'll start putting our wells in place. So I need a well over there, because they're crucial. I definitely have to have them in place. Yeah, I want a street light. So I'll just turn that facing that way. That one needs to be facing that way. Looks a bit weird, that kind of like looks as though it's right on the road, that one. We'll get the next road in place. So that's on that side. We want another well on that side. Now I'll pause these off. I don't really want them wasting the time on that. The focus is really on the fishing lodge up there, and also on the actual wheat, what is going to be an oat field. I'm going to need another barn. I'll turn that around so that that one is facing towards here. I've got to be a bit careful because the size of these barns, you can see it shrinks. Sometimes they shrink a bit. I need to keep all the roads up, all the actual roads in sync. So that looks about right. And that's the difference between that side there and this side there, is we won't be needing a warehouse, we just need the barns again. But this is as far as I'm going to go for now, because the priority really is just the food. They're going to spend quite a bit of... oh, drat. They're going to spend quite a bit of time building these roads anyway. But the priority is really getting these chicken coops up and running, because then we'll get more vitamin E into this area. We need another road on this other side of that caravan stable as well, it seems. So I'll put that there. I'll just get rid of that because I'm not sure if that's needed or not. I'll have to find out later on. Take that bit out. Right, so I'm just going to leave them to get on with this. I don't want to do too much because I don't want people moving around too much, because yeah, they'll die of starvation for other reasons. So I'm just going to leave them to this, see how it plays out. Fingers crossed, we'll recover. See you shortly. Well, we're much further into the spring of the next year. That's just because it was just really, really dark. It was raining quite a lot, and you just couldn't really see much. So I've waited until the weather's cleared up, and we're now at the point where we've got 6 people working in this field, so they're going to produce the actual oats that the chickens are going to need. And I've actually got instructions to start building that coop. I mean, once we get to about 16, on the number of units of work, I'll pause it off, because I can't really do, I can't have this up and running, if there's no oats around. I mean, we do produce some over here, probably not that much, but I mean, 1,722. I doubt that would last very long with the chickens, like. But yeah, that's going to get built, so it'll probably be next year, I imagine, by the time. It depends on these fast ones. Now, oats are fast growing, so I might actually be able to bring these, this chicken coop up later in this year, to be honest. But we'll just have to see how much we get. Now, we've got one fishing lodge over there, so what I've decided to do is build another one over here. We're just waiting for the resources to get brought across. Yeah, once this chicken coop's up and running, we should be in a much better place for, like, village 2, where we've got more vitamin E getting made, or at least more food, I should say, that's got vitamin E in it. Now, over here, what I've been doing to give myself more labourers is I've been dropping the number of herdsmen. I've gone around every pasture and dropped them from about 4 to 3. I think that one down there is about a 6. That's gone from 7 to 6. It doesn't seem to have done me any trouble, because we've got more fish than we did last year, more meat, more vegetables and more fruit. We still had a bit of a surplus of bread and pies. For some strange reason, nobody seems interested in the fish pies, wherever they are, but yeah, whatever. At least we're getting plenty of vegetable pies getting made. And because I've freed up all of those herdsmen, it gave me like an extra 10 people. So I've been able to put more people permanently into the actual bakeries. But really, I want to be back where we were before. I want to get the apiary back up and running. I want the millers up. I want all of the bakers working, and then we'll be back to having this village 1 at full strength. By then, we should then start to see more chicken coops and yeah, well, hopefully then we'll be back to having a proper stable population and more food in stock. The only thing that's also concerning me at the moment is a lack of hide, because this barn here, which is that one there, that's what supplies the hide for the tailors, and there's not that much around. Let me just check that one. Yeah, they're down to one hide as well. So the trouble is we're not producing enough clothes. So I've been going around the barns and I'm trying to get the caravanners to bring whatever hide they've found over to Village 1 so that we can start getting more clothes, because that's going to be a bit of a problem later on. Because we do get caravanners, for instance, who die of hypothermia. I still get teenagers. I can't really do much for the teenagers because I'm pretty sure they're growing up in Village 2 and then heading over to Village 1. I have the same with the children, but you know, with the caravanners there's always the potential that as long as they can get some decent clothes, you know, there's less chance of them actually succumbing to hypothermia. But the plan is we're going to get this all going. We're going to get our oats produced, get this built as soon as we've got a decent amount of oats, get this other fishing lodge up and running, and hopefully as the population keeps rising, I'll be able to put more people back into the food industry over in Village 1. So I'll get on with that, probably bring you back in spring of next year. Well, we're into the spring of the next year. Bit of a mixed bag of results, good news and bad news. The good news is we're producing more food, or at least we've got more food now than we did last year. It's a bit odd, I must admit. If I go into these pastures and look at their graphs, as far as they're concerned, meat's in free fall. It just hasn't recovered, and yet I know I've got more in stock than I did before. If I go over to the accountant, now I think the accountant actually tracks how much is in stock. I don't think they go by how much is produced. I think this is how much is in stock. So you can see at some point we had all of this. It's gone down, then it's kind of flatlined, and now it's starting to come back up again. So yeah, as far as I'm concerned, the food itself's starting to recover. It's doing better, and now we've got these chickens that should get even better still. The only trouble is we've actually lost a lot of people. I'm pretty sure we had something like 328 people in total last spring, so that's quite a drop. Now, some of them, yeah, it's a case of there's not much I can do. It's because people are moving backwards and forwards between the village. So, for instance, I wanted to chop some trees down in this area and here to get some wood, and so we've got, for instance, somewhere around here there's actually a baker who actually starved to death there. That one, I know that because I noticed her over here when this was all getting done. So she came all the way over from Village 1, helped chop the trees down, went back, or at least tried to, and starved to death. Then we've got things like fish farmers who starved to death. Now, they were over here. Now, right at the start of the winter time, or at least when the temperature hit -1, that's when I swapped the farmers over to do the fishing, to do the mills and the bakeries. So these are fish farmers who literally live here. These should have been the farmers who were actually living in the area, but I'm going to say that was basically people who came across from Village 2 to take on those jobs instead of what were originally the farmers. And it's quite possible some of those farmers who then became labourers might have then decided to go over to Village number 2 in the process. It's a bit difficult to say, but we've got other people who died of hypothermia. I mean, I've basically given up on caravanners now after that scene, that strange, I can't remember who it was, but somebody who was literally left Village 2 and started wandering all the way over to Village 1 on a pack mule, then gave up and decided to go home when they were really, really hungry, and surprise, surprise, they didn't last. So yeah, I don't really expect good news from caravanners really. A lot of people who died of old age. The only people I think I can probably do much for is fishermen. There was quite a few fishermen actually froze to death. I can find them. Yeah, there was a couple of them. So that's that one. Well, I can't account for that one. It must have been somebody else then. Was it that one? Yeah, there was a fisherman died over here. Now I'm pretty sure it was somebody from here, because these people, obviously they're working out there right the way throughout the winter, and they're probably living down here at the time. So what I'm doing is I'm going to get a bit of terraforming done over here to flatten it out, and then I'll be able to put a shack in. I'll get that upgraded to support 4 people, because there's 2 in each lodge. I'm going to put a barn in here as well, and then I'm going to get the caravanner here to go and collect the fish that's out here, bring it over to this barn. I mean, I'll leave some behind for these actual people themselves, but they can come out here to get their food from the barn here. I'll have to put in another instruction to start bringing some of the actual firewood from down here up there as well, because that's a really long distance for these people to then travel to get firewood. So it'll be better if I bring it up here, or at least some of it anyway. So yeah, a bit of a mixed bag. I mean, some things I can probably deal with, but the biggest problem really is it's these people are still moving between the villages. So every time I need to chop down trees, every time I need to do terraforming, and I'm going to have to do a lot of terraforming in this direction once we get round to building that village out. So I think realistically what I'm going to do going forward is I'm going to bring this mod in. So this is this one here called Kitchen and Cooking. Now it's got this experimental option for eateries, which allows you to build these little kitchens. They'll produce food, and your villagers can go there to get a meal instead of having to go home. Or it can enable the extra feature as well, which basically allows you to create food within the tavern itself, and that's what I'd rather do. Now I haven't used it before, so I'm going to have a bit of a play with that off camera, see how it goes, because I'm assuming they might have to, you know, get certain types of ingredients from somewhere to then make that actual food that they produce. I don't know, I'll have to find out, but if I do that, then in theory we should then start to do a lot better, because that's the big problem, is the fact that I've got these 2 villages so far apart, and people can only last so long without getting any food. So it's just not practical. I mean, at some point I could literally just collapse village 1, remove it entirely, and then we just go back to having one big village, and then I'll start expanding in this direction maybe. But I'm just literally just curious to see, you know, how good this mod is and what sort of difference it makes. So I'm going to keep the 2 villages going for as long as possible, and just to see how much of an improvement it actually brings me. But that's it for this video. I'm just mindful of how much time we've used up. So I do hope you've enjoyed watching this. If so, then do please leave a like, as that'll help me out a great deal. If you're new to the channel and you'd like to see more content like this, then yeah, do please subscribe. Just remember to click the little bell icon, because then you get notifications when I send new content out. And if you've got any comments, any suggestions, want to leave any feedback at all, please post that in the comments section below. Until the next video, thanks very much for watching. Bye!